Okay, so the Blom sessions have sort of various iterations. This one's called the Blommiekie because it's quite small. We can't have a big party. And we started this year. I have a new team, and we wanted to get to know each other, so we decided to share our thesis projects, and lo and behold, it's my turn now. So I'm coming at you like straight out of the 90s, full on analog. So I hope you appreciate my vintage. The thesis is really about traveling. It's about a journey. I was born and spent my impressionable childhood in Ludwitz and then more impressionable childhood in Johannesburg. And when we came to Joburg, I thought it was like a really horrible place, really ugly compared to Namibia. And we spent many days actually traveling back and forth, visiting grandparents and coming back to Joburg. So I spent a lot of my time as a kid in a car, in a very slow car. It was a 1958 Combi. It took 2 days. It really took 2 days to get to my grandparents. And we would overnight in Uppington or somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And so this is part of my psyche. That's how I started studying in Wits. And this was done after I graduated, just to retrace some of my steps. And it's nice and mull, but you can see down here, there's Namibia, and you know what that distance had on the effect it had on my brain. I'll explain more. But that's really the part of the world that I grew to love. And it's very beautiful, feels kind of pure if you're a kid. There's huge colonial history in there that's really awful and terrible. And then you end up in Joburg, which also has like a really terrible history to some degree, but also incredible innovation. And studying architecture was really an amazing experience. It was also when I became socially and politically conscious. And then actually for my thesis, did exactly the opposite of what I was expected to do, which was a sort of thesis that would save Joburg and save the world. That was kind of the subtext to what I think a lot of people were justifiably wanting to do in their teaching and studies at Wits. And I still see it going on. And I can see, I just saw a student recently who was a bit traumatized from what she thought was expected of her. I also had amazing teachers. So one of them was Peter Rich, that's the drawing up there, who had a sort of knack for describing through drawing really ordinary spaces that were quite extraordinary. And then Noera Wolf, so we've got Heinrich here, who really designed places, or I felt designed places for people. And you can see that so clearly in this drawing with, you know, that's the architecture, and at the bottom, that's really life that completes the architecture and it makes a street. Yeah, I think mentioning that the history of Joburg was kind of violent. This is a picture from the area that my office was in after I graduated. So this is Fitas, which, like District 6, experienced forced removals, protracted forced removals during the 70s. And I think erased sort of a sort of nice urbanity from the collective memory of South Africa, making us very prone to franchise developments like shopping malls and cluster homes and office parks. But I appreciated the information that was shared with me by Peter. For instance, this is a mapping of 14th Street, and the red block is actually a building that we ended up renting, but was actually renovated by Joe and Heinrich. And it was a fantastic space to be an architect in because you're so connected to the public realm. And I think in my practice, I keep on trying to rebuild kind of streets, like rebuild 14th Street, because it made such an impression on me, although I never really experienced the actual thing. So my thesis has a little bit to do with that, the sort of seed of that obsession for kind of popular architecture, popular urbanism, not a refined, highfalutin architecture. But I also really liked this guy called Hans Scharoun, and they were like contemporaries of mine at Wits, like Kevin Fellingham, who really explored this idea of organic architecture before it became sort of in as deconstruction. So this is a school in Germany, and Scharoun had this idea that the institution should be like a landscape or a village, which really, really appealed to me. So I'll show you how I tried to get all that stuff going in my final project. But before we get there, in my final year, I ended up in Rotterdam, which, like parts of Joburg, was like totally destroyed, not as dramatic. Joburg wasn't destroyed as dramatic by bombings. And that means that Rotterdam was really a test bed for new ideas in architecture. This is the Lane Bar, which was done in the 60s to replace really large parts of Rotterdam. And now Rotterdam is known as a kind of capital of, I don't know, modernist architecture. And it's partially also due to this guy, Rem Koolhaas, who I ended up working for a year as a student. And what I got there was just this fascination for urbanity and like hyper-urban conditions. The idea of bigness in the generic city, and that maybe that's something worth looking at commercial architecture as a means where architects can actually have an impact if we embrace it and don't reject it. I worked like a slave. We never finished anything, so that's actually me packing a half-finished model that I had to accompany to finish it in Seoul in Korea. These are projects that were done with many iterations doing models. This was a building supposed to be a mile high for 1 million people that would last 1,000 years. They're really sometimes quite preposterous concepts, but very exciting for me as a student. And I got to work on the 4th highest skyscraper at the time in the world as a headquarters to Samsung. And I lied. I said I couldn't draw on a computer. I can only make models. So that was actually a very wise move in retrospect, because I had a lot of fun, and often, you know, much more qualified people than me would come into the model room and I'd have to explain the objects to them. This is a slice of that building. It's a model we had to do in a day, so like insane pressure in this office. Let's move on. Yeah, but what I really appreciate is this fascination for a contemporary city that's not necessarily beautiful. It's just what it is. It's generic, but that the conditions of juxtaposing program and infrastructure can make for an interesting urban experience. And so this is what I tried in. So I really wanted to exercise this kind of ghost of OMA when I got back to South Africa, but also the living in Holland, everything was like legislated multiple times. You know, every square meter, every square inch. So I really wanted to try this in an open landscape, which pays homage to where I come from. So I thought doing a fueling station on a highway would get me there. And then I got into all sorts of precedent of habitable bridges. So the idea was to make a bridge over the highway. A whole bunch of stuff I looked at. But then also things that my lecturers, so I had a remarkable lecturer who wasn't that popular with students, but I really cared a lot for him, was Donald Tyndale, who didn't build much in his life, but was an extraordinary teacher and brought my attention to the scale of the landscape that I could be working in and the elements, right? So sort of discovering the extraordinary in this quite ordinary landscape that I know so well, including these things which I found very fascinating. This is like a homemade version of that one. So the site eventually I found was outside Bloemfontein between 2 main arteries that go into the city. And it was like pure fluke that I found the site that actually had this big park and a stormwater runoff that I could use to access one part of the program, so of the fueling station. And so I did very few drawings. I made all the drawings as models. So this was a site model. And it was about conserving a piece of landscape, like the veld next to the highway, and connecting that to the city and benefiting from the vast user flows that travel along the N12. And so this project went through several iterations. But the premise of the bridge was that I wouldn't have to make one big generic program. I could diversify the program because you could connect it. So you don't need two hamburger joints either side of the highway, like replicas. You can do like a hamburger joint and a health bar, for instance. So that got me quite excited. You could also present a whole bunch of program to people along their journey, and by the time they get to the fueling station, they really, really need a pee, plus they can access the art gallery, various types of food, exhibitions, the travel agents, the cabaret. It became a little bit preposterous in its exploration. And it was this, reasserting the city onto the highway, which in a sense has denied the city. So I remember once my mom got kicked out of the public pool in Bloemfontein when we took a break on a trip. Because she was wearing a bikini, but it was quite nice that you could drive into the city, go and swim, access food, lunch, but all of that has been replaced by this generic program of fueling stations. So this was a little model. I think we have some thesis students here, so I think, this was me making an AXA out of a model, just as a hint of what you can do. And here we start. So on the suburban side, I just, with the help of my teacher, sort of developed this massive suburban house that was a gym. I got a lot of good crits from my mom's friends who essentially, I said, well, you can go to the Juicy Lucy here, you can go to the gym. If you drive past Bloemfontein or live in Bloemfontein, they were very encouraging on the sort of very basic level. In terms of the architecture, you've got noise and safety to deal with, so these earth burns would assist with that. So there you can see them. And then this is really based on a project I worked on in Korea, which had these 3 distinct levels. And I tried the same with the sort of tarmac level, which was the first floor of the bridge, then a timber level, which was going to be the more empty program, but it's hollow and noisy when people walk on it. So that's where the travel agency and the art gallery was. And then a roof, a kind of sculpted roof that had a lot to do with getting rainwater away from the highway and also to conceal some of the lift rooms that I needed. And so it's a bit of I'm also a big cinema fan, so there's a cinematic sequence of arrival and actually ending up in the hotel, the motel, which was in the Millie field. And those were done with simple storyboard thumbnails. I'll show you a few. And you can see the plans, they were all hand-drawn on this massive roll of paper that's in a blind panic to get done with this project. But you can see little vestiges of my mentors, the people who taught me, and also Hans Sharoon, who, I think I've redrawn every plan that I could find of his in my sketchbook. Yeah, you can see the pedestrian first floor. These big rugby ball things were public toilets, and in fact there are 11 different toilet experiences when you come here, and also one when you leave and everyone's been to the toilet and your kid goes, oh, I need the toilet now, then there's a little booth you can access in the berm, but you're going to pay $5. That's a commercial project. There you can see the suburban roof. The gym is that finger sticking out with a sort of display window for guys with muscles. There's little Jules Verne type of capsule, which is a unisex sauna, which I thought would be useful for kind of affairs. And then there's an art gallery over here, travel agency, and a kind of roof. You could take the roof off the building, so you could turn it into a cabriolet if the weather was nice. The sections, so it's a bit like one of those bridges I showed you earlier on. And on the one side, it's pretty rational. On the other side, it sort of slopes, takes the Millie field up into the first floor, actually. So here you can see an arrival sequence on the suburban side. You can see the guys gymming away there. There's the gym, there's the sauna, there's the health club, here's the Juicy Lucy. And so people from the suburb can access this, right? There's a whole bunch of legislation around you're not allowed to actually connect traffic from the suburb onto the highway and vice versa. So that had to be solved, and I went and actually spoke to Thomas Marenkovitz, who was designing just building the bridge in Midrand, the fueling station there. It was fascinating. So here's arriving just above the gym, and you can see these sort of views into different program, which I thought was super exciting. So a lot of my 3Ds were just generated from models, because I had no clue how to build anything in 3D digitally. That's a boardroom you can hire if you want to do a business meeting on the highway. And there is below is the Juicy Lucy level. There's aerobics for suburbanites. And there was that recreated swimming experience that I missed now. And so it's really this bridge of programs similar to the examples I saw and looked at. There's the art gallery with the volume down to the more commercial level. And this is the commercial level selling, you can see guys selling some biltong there, and the roof that can open up. And I was very inspired by Jean Prouvet's Maison de Peuple in Clichy, which is a fantastic building. If you remind me after this, I can give you the reference. So that's the middle part of the bridge. And these are the toilets. I spent a lot of time like thinking about how toilets could be nice, instead of just these things you like hold your breath, go into and leave as fast as possible. And also just simple things like, you know, changing your baby's diapers. This is the landscape side, so you can exit the first floor over a piece of landscape pulled up into the building. There you can see it. And then something quite crazy, there was a cabaret theater to enable kind of cultural program on the edge of the highway. So you can time your travel and attend the show. And that is how that cafe worked. So it really looked at how you could turn it into a theater, and also how you would handle the west facade. So you would look into setting sun, which could be a problem. And there you can see how that looks. Here in the foreground are the little pods where if you've done everything and you want to carry on with your journey and your kid goes, but I need the toilet, Dad, then you can just stick them in there. And that was the final model and the final site plan. And then here's the hotel. So I thought perhaps the construction site offices could become the cheap motel, and then the more expensive motel is like these little shards, and I made each room different, so that when you come, so you always want to come back to experience the different room. So all the designs were different instead of copy and paste. And the idea was that the motel room is kind of sunken into the landscape somewhat. So you're sort of hanging down into this big horizontal landscape. And this is some of the process. So you can see the different iterations. So I started with wanting to do something very platonic, and then my Don just kept on egging me on to deconstruct it and really make the architecture reflect the human experience of walking across or moving across this bridge and encountering all these different conditions like you would perhaps in an exciting street in a city. And there's kind of the view from the suburban side with the roof nicely resolved there. And that roof, that was like a big insight for me, resolving this roof. And I keep on caring about roofs quite a lot now in my practice. You can see a more eye-level view. And then I also tried to make the two sides different. So the angle of the bridge is related to north, so you're pure north. And it's got sort of a more high-tech aesthetic with the painted truss, and the other side is like where it all sort of breaks apart a bit and crumbles into the landscape. Pretty much like a Hanscharoon building might. So that truss is also like a core 10 truss. I have no idea how those would connect without compromising each other. And then we had to do 1 to 25 technical drawings, and I just thought, there's no ways I'm going to do that. I just want to build it as a model. So by that time, I was so deep into models that basically everything became a model, even the site plan. So this is it. You can see over here these orange veiny roads. There was a real trick in trying to I was too close to an existing intersection, and Thomas actually helped me resolve that, because when you are in Midrand and you use that highway, you realize you're actually going off a main off ramp and then off a little off ramp again to get to the fueling station. So that, we can have some questions just now. I just want to show you the kind of stuff I got busy with just after thesis. So there's a little community. So while I was like really not interested in major social projects at university, I became very, very interested in it when I started practice. And I had a client in Soweto who wanted to do youth center. So similar way, the roof sort of molds itself to the landscape. And also this interior courtyard is like a, you know, an exciting space where different things happen. So there's kind of youth cave down here where people can make lots of noise and they can DJ. There's a bunker down, and the rest are classrooms. And then this is a project for clients on the Vaal who just wanted like this long house with every single room facing the river. And like it didn't quite work because the floodline on the side compromised the site of it. So I had to sort of maneuver, but so I started manipulating the roof sort of based on the way I approached the thesis in the end, was to put a loft for the boys, put a utility wing on, like get light over that utility wing, get light over the patio that faces the view and the sun. And then I had to put a piece of the building on stilts because that was the piece that went over the flood line. And there you can see, so it has this sort of memory of highway architecture, and these things just consciously surfaced. I love driving to site and just driving under all these highway bridges. It was so damn beautiful, you know. And once you understand how hard it is to make anything nice, you stop being a bitch and complain about like architects that you think aren't good. You just shut up and you get on with your own thing. So I picked up a lot of bad habits from some architects that I worked for, who would just rant for hours about how crap their colleagues are. So I don't do that anymore. Then the sort of last bigger project, which is like urban infrastructures in Diepsloot, informal settlement north of Joburg with 200,000 people, 75% informal households, and we were commissioned to rebuild a taxi rank and also to settle traders on the side of the road. And so we built this big veranda actually, and I'll just show you a video of what that looks like, and then we're done. You can ask me stuff. Okay, I'm going to unmute you guys. And then we can take some questions. You might want to type in the chat window if you don't get a word in edgewise, because it might get rowdy. But I'd love to hear from you. And if this was useful for the students who joined us, yeah, and also the architects. Darren's making some noises there. You guys are, well, there's quite a lot of people muted. So you can unmute yourself. Unmute all. I don't know if that's a good idea. Okay, anyway. Okay, somebody said, thank you very much. It's a big pleasure. It's so nice to see some friends and colleagues that I respect and admire. And then somebody else said, incredible models. Thank you. Question from Liam, Ari the Val house. Did it have floodable spaces? Yeah, the carport was floodable. No, it had a very, very big sump at the base of it. Okay, any other questions? We can also talk.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say just how nice it was to see your thesis again, you know, because it was quite kind of controversial and kind of out there at the time. But yeah, just really, really nice to see the, you know, the thinking process that you put into it. And also I think for students in particular, that kind of mixture of drawings and models and just how effective models are, because having worked or taught online for a while, we always try to encourage students to do models as well. But it's, you know, they sort of feel like the photographs don't really reflect them. But I think this presentation shows how you can use photographs to actually demonstrate what you're trying to achieve. And as you know, I always said that a model was 4D, not 3D, because you can kind of see through it and around it, and you can see everything at once. And it just really, you know, so I would really encourage people to return to this kind of expressive sort of model making. It doesn't have to, I mean, your models are very good, but models also don't have to be perfect. They have to capture the essence of what you're actually trying to do. So yeah, for me, it was really nice to sort of go through that again and taking me back to the process you went through in thesis. So yeah, I think, you know, we should be sharing more of this kind of information. So I think it's great that you've started this sort of group and stuff. Yeah. So just before you go on to somebody else, is this the first time you've used Zoom?
Yes.
Okay, because if you want to go back to one of your screens later, we don't have to do it now while people are asking questions. I'll show you how to draw on your drawings as well.
Oh, really?
Obviously, your arrow worked very well. But
Okay.
in the teaching and online crits that we ran, we use the drawing tools, and it's very useful when you want to explain something. We can do that afterwards, yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lone. Well, I have to say thank you for putting up with me. I must have been like a real pain in the ass.
Never.
What?
The worst thing is when students aren't a pain in the ass, because then you get nowhere.
Okay. So, but I think that when the school was run by the management committee, it was actually quite a freaky, nice place, you know, and we lived in the studios and did our thing. It was actually pretty cool. Oh wait, we have a question. Master student, did you have a clear idea of what you wanted to do at first, or did it come to you at a later stage? This is a really good question, because you can totally turn yourself crazy thinking are you doing the right thing in thesis? And Don did a very clever thing. He just like said, grab a paper and a pencil and I'm going to leave you. He left us alone for 3 minutes and said we must write every single idea we have. We must write it down, no matter how stupid we think it is. And then he did such a clever thing. He just, on each person in the class, he read their thing and he just picked out a few things and went, "Ooh, that's very interesting." And then everybody was like encouraged and just got on with it, because he sort of validated something that people intuitively brought up. So I think that exercise is incredibly powerful. And I think it's what I've later come to learn, maybe in teaching, is called active listening. So you're, in a sense, actually mirroring somebody. You're mirroring their idea, their reality, and it gives them confidence. And then question from Ilse, your model making as graphic method is so fascinating and probably a practice that is starting to shift so much into digital. Will it become extinct? But also for that reason, what advice would you give for model makers based in the digital? How do we maintain the 4D as just mentioned? So I know Ilse did this incredible 3D environment for an artist that we were working with, Dean Hutton, and they were like quite worried about their safety, so they asked Ilse to do the virtual exhibition. So And as soon as you give people control in a virtual environment, I think you reclaim some of that choice that you have in a model. You know, you can choose which way to look at it and interact with it. So I find that quite exciting. But it's quite a battle for us as a practice where we use Revit and SketchUp to actually do models. But as soon as we do a model, the mood in the office just lifts, like everybody's happy. It's really interesting. So it's a thing, every time we do a model after a long period of not models, then the office is just visibly happier. So I got another question from Denver, Colorado. Greg, thanks for doing this online. I'm sitting in Denver, Colorado. So great to be able to join. Will you be posting the video on YouTube? I missed the first part. Yeah, I think we'll try and get it onto YouTube. It is being recorded. And Gabs is saying, do you feel like your architectural language emerged from your thesis? So that's from Liam. In a large part, yes. Because thesis just puts you in this unnatural position where you just have to grab whatever resources you have, i.e. the baggage that you carry around with you, and just use it. Because there is no choice. Like, you're under pressure and you have to produce. Because I faffed around forever until July, and then I thought, okay, well, let me now do this building. So I just pulled whatever I had. And then it's like this focus period where you do develop a language. And I think I've never really done competitions except for this bath hosting with containers, but I think competitions are similar where you're just under pressure. You can't be precious. You just have to get stuff done. And that's when you learn, when you sort of push through out of your comfort zone. But I think my advice to thesis students, and maybe Heinrich and Ilse can come in here, is to say, you've got to be not precious about what you're going to do. You're going to have to engage with the process and trust that the process will deliver the goods, but you have to actually be serious and work. You can't just think it'll percolate, because that inspiration is just 1% of the process. Then you've got to do the graft. That's my view. Maybe you guys have something to say there.
Picasso said it's always good if inspiration finds you at work. What's interesting about your thesis, it's quite wild in a way. You know, you can see is that you're having a very, very serious go at speculative ideas. So the emphasis on the speculative is far greater than on, say, the technologically resolved or programmatically refined or anything like that. You know, and it is you could say, yeah, that's now a student, but there's something about the wild, unconstrained work that is in there that's very interesting. You look at other projects where it's far more technically resolved, it sits within the building lines, whatever, and it doesn't have that sense of wild speculation. You know, that project in Soweto, it's a beautiful project, but it's far more responsible, far more, you know, you can see it's within a tight budget and so on, where there's something about this sort of outrageously speculative. It's a question, you know, how does one keep the outrageously speculative alive when you're working for money and when you have plenty of constraints? You can't just sort of pass by some of them.
Yeah, for sure. I think what we've adopted, I think we really had a breakthrough in the RIBA Musa Mother and Child Hospital, where we went like, God, we can't see another face brick, and we're just going to put tiles on this building and make a pattern and work with an artist. So we worked with Lorenzo Nasimbeni, and Anna and him actually did that whole process. And it was like focusing on one piece, where you actually take that one piece and you just invest a lot of energy in it. And that piece for Rahima Musa really shifted the mentality of extending a kind of apartheid township hospital and putting love in it. Because the only sign of human affection were like blow-up minions hanging off the eaves of the main entrance, you know? And we were like, shit, we want to avoid this stuff. So let's make something that's beautiful that people will enjoy, but that's not like Snow White or Walt Disney or something, because you think that's what kids want. So like I remember actually Paul and Anna were at the presentation, and they told me they did this long spiel about how the artwork is open to interpretation and everything. And then one of the doctors just said, you know what, it's got bling and I like bling. And I think that's the thing where, like, I think we can get it right as architects, and we're not so precious, you know. I don't know. That was kind of wild artwork. I didn't really, like, when I saw it being made in the office, I was super worried about it. Like, it was just too crazy for me. But then when it was up there, it was just wonderful, and seeing people's reactions. And then the student housing we just completed with the facade, like the recycled bricks and things. That was also really, Anna and Paul and Carla were instrumental in making that. And, you know, they just went to town. They just started embroidering this building, making it like a woven fabric. And in the end, there were like little clues that you're on the first, second, third floor by having different numbers of bricks. And there were all these little special things that all of a sudden made a space that's usually done very cold-heartedly and in an antagonistic approach, because students, you know, ruin stuff and wreck things and they go wild, made it very caring. And it sort of, yeah, I think it has a similar wildness to the thesis, although I wasn't so directly involved. I mean, I think we came up with the idea in a brainstorm to say, why don't we make a dumb building really, really, really intricately, just in the skin, like that 110 skin that you have to work with. So I don't know if it answers the question. It's like you picked your battles, I suppose.
Yeah.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Just to go back to what you said, you wanted to do something that was completely different to what the other students are doing, which is the conscious stuff. What's that?
I don't think.
Sorry, there's something that popped up on the screen. No, that wasn't my question.
Oh.
Something popped up on the screen there that I wanted to know about. But so there was this this idea of like moving back, like just kind of like rebelling against the socially conscious stuff. And you're not the first person who said that. You know, I encounter will say like my thesis is like, you know, I just want to like not do what everybody else is doing, and everybody else is doing community centers. So what was that? You know, why is that such a thing? Why why was it such a rebellious? I don't know. Like, can we? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the work we've done since I've done thesis. I mean, we've worked on incredible, epic, like informal settlement upgrading projects, and you know, we've really, really steeped ourselves in the sort of socially conscious practice. But I think the thesis, what was in a way so liberating was to work at OMA, was to say, guys, out there are like big things being built. And if we as architects position ourselves to build those big things, but with some tools that elevate a human experience, then it doesn't have to only be like so dreary commercial or these crazy stage sets. So we can develop a kind of identity, we can develop an identity for that generic city that is really responding to the stuff you find around you. And I think, I mean, for, what is it, like 4 or 5 years, a lot of the projects we had to do were really heavy. You know, they tax you. Like they are big, big questions. They just get to you. And I think I was just totally exhausted. And I wanted to like exercise this sort of very strong presence that Rem had in my life for that year, you know, and I went to Seoul where, you know, you actually can't cross any streets because they're all 8-lane highways, even downtown. And as soon as you go in an underpass, there's this action, people trading. It almost becomes like medieval. And I was hoping that through this bridge or the fueling station, I could create that same density of activity that in the end is actually almost redeeming the sort of so blatantly commercial approach to making cities. Because that also freaked me out. There's the endless clusters and office parks that were being built around that point, like 94 pre and post, and still carrying on. But the kind of abdication of the city, you just go like build a wall because we're going to sell lots of this stuff because people want to be safe, and rightfully so. They want to feel safe. If you have the money, what's your choice? But as an architect, you don't really, really want to be complicit in that stuff.
Yeah.
I have another question from someone. Asked the students, what advice do you have for students dealing with the lockdown and continuing to work online without access to mirroring, colleagues, supervisors, or the general studio environment? Yes, I think how would we have done our thesis in the 90s without this technology, dude? You've got this technology. You can mirror with more people than we could ever. So I think you have all the opportunity, actually, I think. Unless I don't understand.
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I've been running an online architectural degree for 6 years now, and all of our crits were online, using these kinds of tools where you draw on the thing, and after a while you forget that you're not actually sitting opposite the student because the focus is on the drawing. So the technology, again, is available. It's just a kind of mindset, and I think the mindset is more about changing lecturers' minds than students' minds. I mean, our students latched onto it incredibly quickly. And yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no reason why studios can't run online. And yeah, I mean, I've been discussing this with the schools for a long time. So yeah, push for the technology and just do it. It's been fantastic. I mean, I have enjoyed, I'm a real studio culture person, and I have enjoyed the kind of online crit immensely because it's somehow it's much more focused. You get to know the students through that same process without actually ever looking at each other. We met 3 times a year, and that was it.
But my advice on this question is also, in lockdown, I think, okay, so when I did thesis, I got a whole bunch of people that I lined up outside of university. So I had Colin Savage, Kevin Fellingham, Henning Rasmus, RIBA, and if I didn't perform for them, like on the second meeting, I hadn't done any work, they would get really mood off, and I would seriously work through 2 nights in a row just to have something to show Aura so that I wouldn't disappoint her. And it was a different kind of pressure. And also Aura had a nice way to crit. She would just go, Thorsten, you can do so much better. It wasn't like you have a problem in your thinking or, have you considered this and that. She was just saying go do work, go work these things out and come back. So I think what you could do is maybe book online things with other people outside of your immediate sort of circle of reference. But just see if it works. I'm sure you can find people who are interested in what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think that was the last question. Yeah, okay, we're going to give it another 5 minutes and then I'm going to make dinner. So if anybody wants to squeeze in a question, you should do it now. Oh, when is the next session? So can you guys please look out on the Instagram page? It's at 2610 South, and also Facebook. So we advertise the stuff there. I am hoping that I can get a little bit of, maybe get sponsorship to pimp these sessions up a bit and to get different kind of people in. Yeah, so the reason we did Friday sessions in the beginning was because we just got lonely practicing. So now I'm really lonely and locked down. So I want to talk to people.
Cool. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
It was
you.
really nice to see the fantastic thesis, lots of excitement and lots of ideas.
Thanks, Heinrich. Means a lot coming from you guys. Thanks, Ilse. Okay, hang on. More questions coming in. 5 minutes perhaps on why we divide the speculative, spectacular thinking and social practice. That's a good question. I don't know. Can't answer that one for you. Because, yeah, there are budgets and all sorts of things. I don't think I can answer that one right now. I'll have to reflect on it a bit more. But I think with like the example with the hospital or the bricks and the Wits resident, it can still be spectacular. You just got to pick like a point where you can try stuff out. And it's got to make sense to a client, right? So the tiles were a replacement of bricks because they don't, you don't have to maintain them, and the bricks are default low maintenance material. Can you briefly discuss your COVID-19 informal settlement strategy? Well, it actually comes out of the, like we did this thing called Informal Studio in 2011, 2012, together with UJ. And Alex Upper was a teacher at UJ there and invited us, and it looked at how you can reblock settlements. So that was the basic premise, and put in infrastructure. So if you go to First Fix on our website, you can actually read about it. So it's all there, actually. You can just look at it. And I've just sort of brought it back into consciousness because reblocking is really a necessary strategy to de-densify settlements, or to just, I don't think they should be de-densified. They should actually just be, you should have technology to build vertically. But sanitation is just like a big thing because it's so undignified. Like in Diepsloot, we had 4 kilometers of daylight sewage flowing through an area of, I think, 30,000 people, and people just getting sick. So it's like a no-brainer. And it takes a crisis to maybe rethink these things again. Then would you recommend students going overseas to other architectural universities, gain a wider experience when doing masters or honors? Or is it better to rather go to South African university where you know more about the context and can be more responsive in your approach? Well, I don't know because I didn't study overseas, but we have someone who just finished, who will hopefully speak at the next session. There's Claire. Claire, you just finished studying at TU Delft. What can you tell this person asking this question?
Put my video on. Oh gosh, it's a really difficult question to answer. I think there is no one answer. Going away and being part of a different environment is, I mean, I learned an incredible amount. And as I said, I didn't have the experience to continue my studies in South Africa, so it's difficult to kind of see the counterpoint. But I think, engaging in a master's wherever you are, you're thinking about things, with the knowledge you have from your work experience, from your bachelor's. And I think, yeah, as long as you sort of engage with your environment in that way, you're going to learn. And, life is lifelong learning. You're never going to stop. So whether you study overseas or whether you move to a different city in the same country, even moving from Cape Town to Johannesburg was a huge learning curve for me. So I think it's very difficult to answer that question, and don't overthink it too much. I think apply in different places, see what comes up, what your options are. Don't limit yourself.
I just came across this really cool story. A guy called Magnus Strohm, who's working from, of all places, Portsmouth in England. It's like a really small seaside town. And he's a Swedish oak who couldn't get into university in Sweden, and then the acceptance criteria were just lower in Britain. So he went to the cheapest school he could find, and he's practicing globally, just doing really beautiful houses for people. And he's just figured out like a system to deliver consistent quality work. And I don't think where he studied, he said he was lucky because at the school at the time was a sort of, he said like a sweet time where they had really good tutors. And then I met Rick Joy a few years ago, and I was like a total fan. And I immediately asked him, where did you study? And he said, I didn't have any money, so I went to I moved to Tucson from Maine because that was the cheapest school in America.
Sure.
And
Yeah, I think it's more about you as the individual. Are you sort of passionate? Are you tuned into your surroundings? Are you sort of observing? What are you are you making the most of the opportunities that are at your disposal? I don't think you necessarily have to go to some fancy place because even at those fancy places, if you're not engaged and utilizing what's around you, you're not benefiting from it. So I think it's more about your you as the individual, your like approach to your surroundings. So just like wherever you are, make the best of it. Amazing people everywhere.
Yeah, it's a hard one. Hey, it's also luck plays into it, but luck is always the thing. I don't really believe in luck, but it's like a mindset or like pursuing a goal relentlessly and then also adjusting around that goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep on adjusting. Learn is saying, well, study is important and make the best of it, but what you do with your education is more important. There we go. That's someone with lots of experience saying that, and a really amazing teacher. Okay, we can have another 2 minutes. So I will try this thing on YouTube and you guys can share it. And then I missed another question. Do you think this idea or version of your thesis could become a reality in the future, transforming ideas of intense urbanity or economic reality around freeways? Well, funny enough, they built a really big fueling station like 2 years after my thesis, which wasn't a bridge, but it actually had a motel. So I was sort of onto something there. I think my thesis would have been very expensive, and I thought if I incorporate some of the cultural program, that the city could pay for some of the costs. And you can have like a big gym tenant and a cool gallery, cool travel agency, awesome theatre. That could be like the public part, public funding for that. So yeah, I think it can work. Maybe I'll still get to build it. Who knows? I'd love to. Okay, people saying thank you for the feedback. I've got 1 more minute. If anyone wants to squeeze in a question, I'll stick around for a while and then. Oh, thank you for sharing your work. You have very inspiring updates. Oh, thank you very much, Simone. I think I met you in Pretoria. So I hope you're doing well. You must be doing thesis soon. Okay, guys, that's it from me. Yeah, all the best in your lockdown, various challenges and thesis. So I'm going to say goodbye.
Bye.
Hey, guys. Bye, Elian.
Bye, Thorsten.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll do it again in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Claire, are you keen?
Yeah, I'm keen.
Okay, awesome.
Definitely, it'd be nice to play.
I will get, you must send me your, I got your email. I'll put Tarira in touch with you. She'll do the invites and stuff.
Cool. Awesome.
Okay.
Looking forward. Bye, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Thorsten. Good to see you.
Hey, Greg. How's it, man?
Thanks, Thorsten.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, guys. Cheers. And we can do the drawing another. Oh, do you want to quickly show me the drawing?
Yeah,
Right?
let me show you quickly. Just go back to one of your drawings. You can stop this recording and just go back to one of your drawings, and I'll show you quickly. It'll take 2 seconds.
Where do I stop the recording? Pause. Yeah. Pause.